Okay, time for some more illogic. Last time we went over our Week 8 match against Greg and his Calgary Corviknight. Please go check out that video first if you have not done so already, as we went over the Teambuilder and battle in which, spoiler alert, the Buffalo Bouffalant finished off the regular season with a big win, 2-0, over the now 6-2 Calgary Corviknight, avenging my worst loss in many seasons. That brought our final regular season record up to 5-3 with a +9 differential, maneuvering the second toughest schedule in the league to a number 6 seed placement. Not enough to avoid a play-in game, but to be fair, only the top 3 seeds avoided a play-in match due to the crazy number of 4-4 teams that ended up making it in. To that end, with 13 teams making the playoffs, this time we'll be going over our play-in match against Anivia and his 11-seeded 4-4 Chillin Chi-Yus. Timestamps will be in the description. This is the brother of AJ of the Chicago Clouds, meaning we get to play each of the 2 new coaches to the league. What a privilege. Unlike his brother, the Chi-Yus got off to a hot start, 3-0 to begin the season actually, before tumbling off the side of a cliff to finish 1-4. That one win coming against a Kinglers team that was government mandated to bring all of Sunkern, Mareep, and Flaffy, so we're most certainly not playing a hot team. This would be a direct result of same team syndrome. It isn't really enough to just alternate between the same couple of Smogon sets every single week and expect success, especially when we require a show team command at the end of every match. Of course, as I will always argue, Dragonite is at times good enough to carry by itself, which it certainly did through at least a couple of his early wins, ending near the top of the KO leaderboard at the end of the season. But by the end, it didn't move up too much, as everyone saw the couple of sets that were brought consistently and prepped accordingly. With that, let's take a look at the full team we're going to be contending with. It starts at the top with Ribombee, but then drops off to Rotom-Heat as the second fastest, one of 2 teams whose top 2 speeds are at 124, and then it dropped to a Rotom form, very funny. From there, it's Samurott-Hisui, who I had originally thought I'd be picking up in the draft alongside Annihilate. Then Goldengo, that cursed Dragonite, Sandaconda, Breloom, Dragonair, Cottonee, Gloom, and Glowking, with Terra Captains, Cottonee, Dragonair, and of course Dragonite. There's so much to go over here, but I think it'll be easier to just go through the mods as I expect they'll come as usual. Dragonair, it doesn't really do anything better than Dragonite could, especially with only 1 Terra available, except I guess Rest Shed Skin, which isn't enough to include on the team. Gloom is actually quite tanky and has all these powder moves and strength sap to mess one up, but with Empoleon and Bisharp plus 2 grass types, it's hard to imagine it would ever come. Cottonee is something he's actually brought more than once, thanks to Prankster, Leech Seed, and Substitute and the like. But I do have 2 grass types and multiple switch moves and multiple fire types, and it's kind of tough to imagine this doing much against my team overall. Ribombee is one of those mods, man. I really do love it, not just for sticky webs, but also things like Specs or Quiver Dance. But it doesn't appear that the Chi-Yus are particularly interested in bringing a set like that, and thank goodness for that, though I do have some hard stops, Empoleon chiefly among those, along with things like Speed Boost, Yanmega, and other possible Scarfers I've brought, as well as Typhlosion and Cinderace, at least resisting both stabs. And Sticky Webs, really? Against the Court Change Cinder, Defiant Bisharp, Competitive Empoleon, and 4 ground immunities alongside Appleton and Iron Hands team? Why? And finally, I like Breloom, and I think sets like a Substitute or Choice Band could be deadly in this matchup, but once again my opponent doesn't seem interested in bringing something like that, instead focusing on that Spore the 1 or 2 times it's been brought. I have 3 immunities on my grass types in Komala, but if that isn't enough, we've got Typhlosion, Latios, and Yanmega that resist both stabs with 6 different types somehow. Not really sure how that happened, but that's pretty cool, and plenty of other outspeeds and options. So, his top mons. I really do love Sandaconda. Shout out to Season 6, and it's probably coming. Stealth Rock, Glare, Earthquake, and Rust is the standard set. And what, pray tell, do you plan on doing to Rotom? Rocks could go up, I suppose, but otherwise we have some options, all of which involve hitting it on the special side thanks to that physical bulk, but with enough options that shouldn't be an issue considering its middling speed stat. Speaking of, Galarian Slowking is so bulky, especially on the special side, so that could make a natural partner with Sandaconda, and of course can pivot around with Chilly Reception and Regenerator while tossing out things like Future Sight. I have some stops there, but he's definitely got the ability to sit in front of me pretty freely as well. We'll have to keep this heavily in mind when team building. Speaking of Goldengo, has not been particularly gone off for him, despite my love for Goldengo. Shout out to Season 12. It looks like he's really interested in either an Air Balloon set or a Nasty Plot set, rather Balloon plus Nasty Plot, or a Scarf set, both of which have some interesting applications, especially I think Scarf actually this matchup to outspeed my usual checks, plus having the ability to trick and to potentially cripple something I can't afford to let be tricked. But that Nasty Plot set recovering up could be a pain as well if I don't bring the best answers to wear it down effectively. Hisui and Samurott look scary, resisting multiple stab options from multiple mons, mainly Typhlosion and Bisharp, but doesn't have much recovery, so I think we should be able to at least wear it down. Easier said than done, of course, especially with the 2 sets we've seen it being Assault Vest and, more importantly, Scarf, something we need to play around, especially since those hazards I'm always scared of that never show up are basically guaranteed to this time around in the form of spikes from Ceaseless Edge. Rotom-Heat is actually possibly the toughest to break through here, with somewhat speedy Volt Switches schmoving it around, an immunity to ground, plus a resistance to most of my offensive types, plus usually running Helmet to wear down physical offense, and Pain Split to annoy mainly Iron Hands alongside with a Will-O-Wisp. But you already know the big bad boss we have to contend with is Dragonite. My most embarrassing loss in my WCL career is easily going down to the D-Knight of the Mighty Miltanks. Not a glamorous loss, even a little bit, though that and the subsequent loss helped focus my season, and I not only made semifinals that season, but was the only one to bring down the eventual champion all season. Enough of that. Dragonite, Terra Normal Extreme Speed, boosted by Dragon Dance. Anything else to say here? Probably that the D-Knight has been manipulated recently, as the set is rather predictable. Boots with Dragon Dance, Roost, E-Speed, and the coverage option of Earthquake. I've seen Balloon Chandelure, Balloon Terra Ghost Regieleki. There's some ideas that come to mind to deal with it, but with other options in the back, are we going to have enough to contend with this if the other mons can sufficiently handle my checks? Unfortunately, once again, my first elimination was Komala. Yeah, I finally know hazards are coming, but Komala doesn't like Goldango coming in, especially tanky Goldango, and it's outsped by so many of these big threats. Even if the high-end speeds aren't there, it's enough for Komala, and the team I'm bringing looks slow enough already, so no Komala. Gligar does actually look pretty great here. Knockoff is awesome for Scarfs and the like, EQ for Goldango and Glowking, Toxic to guarantee D-Knight doesn't get out of control, and enough bulk to do at least a couple of those things, but I think I have a few better options, particularly in the role of Physical Wall this week, with other immunities and resists that are a little more valuable. Empoleon, man, it looks so good every week and then I don't bring it. But again, we've got issues with Rotom-Heat Volt Switch, D-Knight going Terra Normal and nuking with EQ, Breloom eats me for breakfast, we've got the most awkward stalemate with Glowking, and one more time there are better walls to deal with our problems. I thought this was going to be the week for Tinted Lenzion Mega, too. Air Slash's resists of Rotom and Goldango would not appreciate the Tinted Lens boost there, nor would they appreciate a Choice Specs boost, and that sounds very funny. But E-Speed, Scarf Hammerot, and or Goldango, and the general inability to OHKO anything, relying on Air Slash for its flinches at times, mean I think I can come up with a better special attacker and Terramon for this week. But that's not going to be, surprisingly yet again, Latios, my first round pick, not coming again. I fiddled with the Chillin Berry set for a good bit to try and get the jump on D-Knight, but honestly, it's not enough. Glowking Wall, Scarf Hammerot, and Goldango Sting. Being paralyzed by Rotom doesn't sound fun, and there wasn't a full set I felt good enough about to reliably bring and execute. We're definitely going much more straightforward this week with our sets, partially because of confidence in the matchup, and partially because I didn't have much time. I've mentioned in the past being busy, but I actually had to delay our match here because I was out of town this whole week, and the match was due there, and didn't start series prep until the day of, or before the match, rather. Still, I like what we've got, even if there isn't much spice to demonstrate that. How about Scarf Rotom for the third time in 4 weeks? I was really hoping to just slap Choice Specs on it this week and click Terra Electric T-Bolt, but Scarf is safe for +1 D-Knight, Goldango, and Hammerot. It's the same set you're used to with a couple small changes. No T-Bolt, but we've got Will-O-Wisp instead as a way to neuter D-Knight for the match, and that Shadow Ball over Terra Blast is because our Terra type, and the one I anticipate to use, is Terra Ghost. Remember that the standard set our opponent has been running only has E-Speed and EQ for attacking options, meaning a Levitating Ghost type would be immune to both. If I need to, say, trick the Scarf away or need to take damage burning, say, a Samurott, and we're still able to completely wall the D-Knight, which is neat, though looking back, I definitely have an issue with not having a move to hit Terra Normal D-Knight while staying in, but hey, extra utility, getting the Terra Ghost Shadow Ball for Goldango and Glowking, and Volt Switch outspeeding Scarf Hammerot while doing upwards of 85% is incredibly valuable. Good set overall. Maybe could have kept T-Bolt over Willow as mentioned, especially since I've got another option for that. Or should I say, another option. It's time for a bulkier Cinderace. Lots of HP investment while still being able to go Adamant with lots of investment there because I only need to outspeed the Rotom. And Willow is a good option catching Hammerot or D-Knight if possible. Powerball still nails Goldango, especially alongside things like Breloom or Rabombi, with U-turn as to a pivot as always. Court Change has a lot of utility here, though, as even if I don't think webs are coming, we can get the jump on Stealth Rocks from Sandaconda, or, incredibly likely, Spikes from Hammerot. With Ceaseless Edge getting them up for free, we can take advantage of that easily, especially with boots to prevent the chip damage. But we need to switch into the Hammerot at all times, and that's why I'm going to be bringing the Appleton back with max defense and the Rocky Helmet to punish its bet's neutral option. Notably, Volt Switch into Helmet KO Scarf Hammerot. Would love to find that scenario if possible, but I also don't mind recovering up frequently and letting my damage from Helmet accumulate, especially if I can follow up later with a Court Change to put up to 3 layers of spikes on my opponent's field instead. Otherwise, Apple Acid means we have the potential to win a 1v1 against basically anything. Leech Seed is great recovery to help us maneuver around Rotom and Dragonite in particular, and then Dragon Tail was something I was unsure of, but have come to agree with. It should be able to phase out D-Knight, plus once I get those spikes up on my opponent's field, it should force some progress around nicely. Even with some anti-synergy with Leech Seed, we should still be able to click them against different opponents. Terra Water is neat to resist things like Make It Rain, while still resisting Aqua Cutter and getting me neutral to things like Sludge Bomb from Slowking, but I don't anticipate clicking it. I only have 2 answers to EQ, this being one of them, and I'd love to keep that. Plus, this set means Rotom-Heat shouldn't be able to touch me with 2 big resistances to its moves. Plenty to love about this mon and the set this week, not to mention small things like being immune to Breloom's Spore or Cottony's Leech Seed, loving having an extra grass type this week to deal with them specifically. We'll move to the specially defensive counterpart to Appleton. The last 2 members I added this week here, we're going to the Assault Vest Iron Hands. We can tank Gholdengo hits all day long, as something Appleton in particular struggles with, and the rest of the squad kinda hates Scarf Set, so I wanted a reliable answer to it, with EQ doing over half back to most Gholdengos alongside Ice Punch and Close Combat to handle D-Knight pre and post Terra. Volt Switch is last. I consider Drain Punch for recovery against something like Samurott, which we can also handle, but the momentum is important to me, especially if we don't want to guess against something D-Knight can go out into Rotom after taking 1 hit to burn it, or to Volt Switch out of non-Scarf Gholdengo to go into something like Cinderace to Power Ball down. We have a lot more options with Volt Switch. Willow and Pain Split from Rotom do admittedly hurt, and is part of why I ranked Rotom as the mon I'm second most afraid of, but even just Volt Switching out would ultimately be okay, and that's why I kept that on the moveset. 2 more months ago, it's the powerhouses of this week, taking advantage of relatively obvious situations. The first will be the Bisharp, rocking a similar set to an earlier week with Substitute to go with the usual stab options. Low Kick would have been nice to find room for against Hammerot, but honestly, I have so many ways to wear down Hammerot, I think that I'm not too concerned about it. Even just clicking Throat Chop should be doing about a quarter, combined with Helmet from Appleton doing about 40%. That racks up quickly alongside its teammates. Sucker, of course, for priority. Iron Head is consistent against the grass types especially, but the Substitute may look weird. If I can force switches as I think I do, I'd love to set up a substitute to take advantage. The number 1 reason is Slowking. The only thing it can touch me with is with T-Wave, and if I don't switch into that, it's the most free sub of my life. Slowking shouldn't be staying in on Bisharp, and if I swap in on it, what's it doing? Chili would suck, but otherwise it could be likely setting up Future Sight. And if I swap in on that, it's going to try and Chili out into something like Hammerot to click a fighting move, and now I can't take Future Sight with Bisharp. With Substitute, my sub gets broken, I get damage off on something else, and then the Future Sight goes into Bisharp, and with lefties, Bisharp is still healthy to do the same thing to Slowking again later. It's a neat mechanism to take advantage of the pressure it puts on that mon, hope it works out. But I think the star of the show should be the Hisui and Typhlosion, rocking some nice choice spectacles with speed for everything but Rabombi and Scarfs, obviously. Yes, Specs Eruption is going to be rocking, and the main reason I'm not worried about his resists and special tanks against non-AV Slowking, against max HP Rotom-Heat, and against AV Hammerot, which naturally resists both stabs. Eruption is a 2-hit KO. Isn't that insane? And again, I outspeed literally his whole team, minus 1 mana and Scarfs. Even Breloom can't touch me with Mach Punch, and D-Knight can't with E-Speed, and against something like Gholdengo or Rotom, we can scout for the Choice Scarf with Frisk, making that super useful here. Otherwise straightforward. We may be clicking Shadow Ball at some point, Fire Blast if we take too much from Spikes. It's straightforward though, we are clicking buttons. That's going to be the team. Again, not much time for prep, but some solid ideas here. Let's do this. It's the play-in round. Yep, there's his top 6. Really not favoring the Breloom or Rabombi, unfortunately for him. A few minutes before the match, I started thinking about leads and thought to look up his lead patterns. Turns out, every time he's brought Sandaconda, he's led with it. Maybe we could take advantage of that then? Hisui and Typhlosion turn 1, why not? Good luck, have fun to Anivia. It is indeed Sandaconda, so yeah, this is absolutely perfect. I'm going to just click Eruption, either claim a KO or half of something else's health, or it's already D-Knight time. Or, I mean, Eruption can just claim the clean OHKO on turn 1 against the Sand Snake. No rocks, no glare, no EQ, and we're already up big. Good stuff. It obviously invites in Hisui and Samurott and Scarf or not, though I'm assuming a Scarf until proven otherwise, especially since it came in here. We do have the switch in for that. Appleton is going to come in, and yeah, a crit of course, but Helmet Chip and a quick recover means I'm not going to be upset about it, even as Rotom comes out. I don't actually have the super duper best switch-ins to Rotom, but on the other hand, again, he's really not doing much of anything to me back except for paralysis. I don't need much aside from the helmet, so sure, I'll just get off Leech Seed and see what he wants to do from there. T-Wave, yep. Leech Seed, yep, as expected. Don't suppose he'll want to stay in now, so I could do some cheekiness. I don't want to risk anything. I'll go for the safe Apple Acid, I think. Going to Volt Switch out and go into the Gholdengo. Yeah, that does make sense. Apple Acid doing minimal damage, okay, and oh, yeah, we know it's special defense drop, and leftover, so it's not Scarf and it's not Balloon. That's not one of the same couple sets, I think. Okay, that's fine. We have the dedicated switch in, so we're just going to go into Iron Hands, take Spikes, and Nasty Plot. I still take that all day. EQ should be a pretty easy 2-hit KO. So if you want to see how badly a turn can go, check this out. Shadow Ball does 28. Not enough for 3-hit KO, but the special defense drop. And EQ doesn't even do half. That's going to be less with the recovery. That's an extremely bulky Gholdengo, and that Spadef drop is a bit brutal, to be honest. Best thing I can do here is to either EQ again to bring it low, Hands isn't doing much anymore, or Volt Switch out to allow something else to handle the String Cheese Man. To be honest, I don't remember what I picked because Hands immediately gets crit the next turn to even up the game 5-5. I don't even know what to say about that. AB Hands was supposed to wall this thing and beat it 1v1 easily, and then it just got a special defense drop into a crit. And Gholdengo is actually still a little bit healthy. It's going to get some leftover recovery here too. Well, I've got a couple options. Volt Switch Rotom doesn't make that much sense. Bisharp would be nice if I can guarantee no Focus Blast, but I just can't, especially knowing how it's going to hit and wanting it healthy for Glow King plays. Typhlosion would be safe, but it also kind of would suck to lose health on it for Eruption later because of those spikes. And finally, the option I went with, it's going to be the Cinderace. I know. Look how often I missed Power Ball this season, 90%. Anyways, this is still probably the safest option, and if it misses, I have a good excuse at least. Its usefulness looks a little bit limited past Court Change anyways, so I don't have too much of a problem at least trying this first. He'll probably just go Rotom anyways, it's fine. Or thankfully he stays in and lets Gholdengo go down. Hey, we'll take that in change for the Hands, frankly. That's what the Hands was there for, considering the other Mons around, so we will retake the lead. And predictably, here is Hammerot again, telegraphing a Scarf or Aqua Jet. And either way, once again, we have the dedicated answer. Appleton in, take damage from Spikes, and the normal amount from Ceaseless Edge and Chip back. We are getting a little tiny bit lower. Hit-taking capabilities are thus going down a little bit as well. We're going to need to prioritize getting those Spikes off the field sooner rather than later, I believe, to also be able to help facilitate some Typhlosion plays if possible. But for now, we're just going to recover up on the swap out into Glow King, the other good answer to my Appleton now that Gholdengo is gone. But this is also, of course, an invitation for Bisharp, which I will just go ahead and take. And as described before, Glow King will click Future Sight, and now the seemingly stupid decision to put sub on Bisharp looks smart, as I am going to sub up on the switch to Hammerot, perfect, and on the Sacred Sword, I'm going to be able to Throat Chop to get some more chip. We're going to see how much that is, about a quarter or so. Cool, and now Future Sight does absolutely nothing, avoiding all Glow King damage, which is excellent. Okay, so once again, we have an easy switch in for Typhlosion, but it'd be on Spikes again. Well, again, we're going to be taking damage on the Apple Pie if I do that. I think that's a cycle I'm okay with overall. We're just going to go back to Appleton. Oh, he got us. We're going to be Dragonite as the option. Well, I guess it's time. We can ensure that the next time it comes in, it won't have multi-scale by Dragon Tailing it out and maybe find something else out about the set in the meantime. D-Dance up. Okay, and I said I'd like to force it out. You know, not have it set up in my face. I'm in the range of +2 Ice Spinner. I prefer not to have Terry, Terra normal, E-Speed, over half my health remaining, but thankfully Dragon Tail does connect this time. We've got a third off of D-Knight as it's forced out at least. Okay, either you can't recover that off, or he's only got the one coverage option again. That's good. Of course, if beggars could be choosers, I sure would have liked either of the other two options to come in, as that would have been a perfect chance to recover up. Instead, if I swap out into Bisharp, that guy will take Spikes damage, and then Appleton will take damage on re-entry too. Who can I recover up on anymore? With Spikes up, nothing. Not with those still up. I need to prioritize that Court Change. And to do so, I think it'll be worth it to try and recover right here and now. I'm sorry, Appleton. I'm going to risk recover, and even if he attacks, which he does, outspeeding due to the paralysis, I can then bring in Cinderace next. And with that done, here we go. Finally, I can click Court Change and have it go off, which is huge. And even as Chilly Reception goes off, what's my Hammerot answer nowadays? Anyways, never mind. We can worry about that later, especially because it's actually D-Knight that is his answer to Cinder, apparently. Nice boots. Well, the purpose of a bulky Cinderace is that I would like to spread status a little bit, so I'm actually pretty ecstatic to have Will-O-Wisp on the set right now, and Cinder's usefulness appears to be ever steadily increasing. Willow, I know you don't have Chester or Alum, so that will stick, thank you, on a D-Dance. That does make sense. With the burn chip, he's going to be at 61. He might actually be in range of a Pyro Ball, funnily enough, especially with the burn, so for the sake of trying to grab the KO now, I'm just going to go for it. Oh yeah, he outspeeds Roost to get back on the multi-scale. That does check out, but as I said before, depending on the coverage move, we may just have this one cleared anyways. I'm just going to U-turn then this time around to get something in that could threaten it a little bit more. Yeah, now he goes for EQ. Geez, 66% well burned. U-turn chunks it still as it's not multi-scale, and into Rotom for the very obvious Volt Switch. Well, I guess the Volt Switch is obvious, but I should decide on whether to Terra or not. Terra Ghost is obvious, be immune to the E-Speed. What about the rest of the match? The Electric Resist is unique to the rest of the team, as is the Water Resist and the Thunder Wave immunity, and those could all be relevant depending on what we're going to have happen. Maybe Overheat's been used, and maybe what Hammerot locks into. Can I afford to take a +1 burn D speed to preserve my original typing? He might not even go for it, but with that much chip, am I even an answer to those options anymore? I may need to be careful with my health, but as long as I have the Scarf intact, I should be fine, I think. And thankfully, as I refuse to Terra, Volt Switch will still go first, implying Rooster D-Dance and going down as D-Knight the threat 4-3 as I try to bait in the Hammerot to get that Spikes chip off on it, instead getting the Rotom-Heat. That's kind of interesting. My Bishop's in an awkward position. I need to nail down this Rotom if possible somehow, right? I'm not sure how. How do I also break through the Glow King? Those two are in a nice position with each other. It'll have to be off of Bishop getting off damage, probably into Glow King probably, or an appropriate free switch. To that end, I'll try making a play here. Rotom maybe going for Overheat or T-Wave, I think. Overheat is more likely to finish me off in a desperate ploy, and if that's the case, I have a play. Cinder can absorb that, or a T-Wave, I guess, or this Volt Switch even, just to give me a free switch. Sadly, the usefulness has worn off, so I do have to sack it off to figure out a way to break through the scattered remains of my opponent's team. A Volt Switch seems helpful if I can get some more damage off for Typhlosion, and actually, as Cinder goes down to Sacred Sword, I think we may have just found our ticket. It's tied 3-3, and yet Samurott is in a great spot. And yes, I could Volt Switch pretty freely here, but I think I have an idea. If this is indeed Scarfed, it's locked into a fighting move, and I have an immunity right here. I can even confirm that it's Scarfed, as you can see on screen. Thank you, Frisk. And now then, pick a sack. Something is going to go down. Bring me an offering. Specs Eruption is coming for you. Rotom-Heat, not an answer. Eruption is resisted 56%. Yeah, this was the last piece to victory, I believe. Now as I fire off another one to finish it, no more paralysis, no more pain split shenanigans left to stop me. That should be a just about game. Hammerot, of course, is in for its last set of moves because of spikes. Thank you very much for that. We're just going to swap out there. And the Aqua Cutter is doing very little. Again, of course, Outspeed and Volt Switch. I choose to sack it off later to the Spikes instead as Glow King comes in. I could pick either of my guys, but Typhlosion kind of deserves it for its performance that game. That Spec Shadow Ball is a better chance to KO, so let's do it. It's about a 50-50 chance, but the crit will seal it. Not that there was much Glow King was doing about that anyways. And with the final KO on Hammerot, we survive and move on to the quarterfinals. GG to Anivia. A couple sets there, and some hacks that did not go my way was really made for a bit of a scare, but we made it through just fine, I suppose. Specs Typhlosion was a baller. Shout out to Cinderace for its couple of KOs, thanks to Fireball. Finally having Court Change go off, but the key burn into D-Knight as well. And Appleton for being an amazing tank there in a particular spot. Played out pretty well, but a couple of unpredictable sets and we were in trouble. It feels like it's been that for a few weeks now, actually. We've had some great games, some awesome sets, a few amazing plays, but I felt like I've needed to play quite well to get the jump on my opponents lately, which isn't a great feeling. Here's hoping we can settle our game plan enough the rest of our season. Speaking of, that'll do it for this match, and that means we can move towards the quarterfinals. The number 1 seed Wooper Boopers, whose only loss was to us in Week 5, take on the 12-seeded Cincinnati Incineroar, who had the surprise win over the Terrifier Heatwave. The number 2-seeded Newport Noctows faced the 10-seeded Close Combat Club, another upset win there over the Akron Agrons for the club, and a rematch as the club had to face all 5 of the top seeds this season. Insane. The 3-seeded Calgary Corviknights will play the 8-seeded Waterdeep Wobbuffets after the latter disposed of the Boulder Boulders. And finally, fresh off of a very close 1-0 win over the 13-seeded Summit County Psyducks, the Corviknight Clobberers are the 4-seed and will be our opponent in the quarterfinals. A time for revenge, or a chance to lose to the same team twice in the same season for the first time in 6 or 7 seasons, depending on how you classify the multi-battle season. Either way, it's a Week 7 rematch next time, and we'll see you then.